We got a mailbag on today's edition of Miami Dolphins Today by Chat Sports. Welcome in. Appreciate you all for hanging out with us on this Sunday afternoon. I am Nic Rohloff. We'll start it off with Prod Jackson, which, by the way, make sure you subscribe to the channel because these questions are coming from our community tab. You got to be subscribed to be able to have access to that. But Prod says, on a scale of 1 to 10, what are the odds Jalen Ramsey stays? I don't give it a very high percentage here, Prod. We've seen Tyreek Hill say at Fanatics Fest that he's going to try to recruit Jalen Ramsey back. He's going to hang out with them. And yes, I know this trade has not occurred yet and it's been dragging on. But if I had to give it a scale of 1 to 10, I think it's going to be more or less a 1.7 if we're going to be honest. Because Ramsey doesn't want to play for McDaniel. I don't think McDaniel really wants to have Jalen Ramsey either. So this relationship is fractured. I think there is going to be a trade right before training camp. And Jalen Ramsey is not going to be a Miami Dolphin. Make sure you follow us over on Instagram at Dolphins Today. IG is the handle. We are 61 followers away from 1,000. That's a huge milestone. Follow us over there for more coverage around the Fins. We've got posts. We've got short form outside of our YouTube shows and live shows here. So make sure you go give us a follow. Boomer Sooner with a question. Excuse me. Do you think Jonnu Smith will be on the roster for the 2025 season? So, in contrary belief, I am going to go the opposite of what I said with Jalen Ramsey. I believe Ramsey is a foregone conclusion being traded. I think the Dolphins ultimately figure it out with Jonnu Smith. And I have a couple of reasons why. One, Miami does not really have a tight end on their roster that is trustworthy outside of Jonnu Smith. The backups are Pharaoh Brown, Julian Hill, and Tanner Connor. Doesn't inspire a lot of confidence right there. Plus, Mike McDaniel wants him to stick around. Tua wants him to stick around. And the only team that has registered any interest in potentially trading for Jonnu Smith is the Pittsburgh Steelers. So if the Steelers aren't going to trade for him, I don't really foresee another team making a deal with Miami for Jonnu. So one, I don't think there's a lot of interest around the league in Jonnu with 1 year left on his deal. Plus, I think Miami wants to keep him. I think they strike a deal. I think Jonnu Smith is back at that tight end one position for Miami in this 2025 season. Will it be with a new contract or will it be on a 1 year deal? That remains to be seen. But predict it for me. It's the pinned comment on today's show. Will Jonnu Smith be on the Dolphins roster in 2025? I say yes, but your turn to get your thoughts on the matter in the comments. Y for yes or N for no. Orbit Productions. When are we going to seriously talk about the owner and the front office? It's embarrassing. I don't disagree, man. The front office is not good. I've been very much on the train over the last year that Chris Grier should be fired. And I believe that Miami, if they miss the playoffs again this year, Grier will be canned. I know Ross said after last season that he believes in stability, and Grier and McDaniel give him that. But Chris Grier's been the GM since 2016. The Dolphins have not won a playoff game. That is flat out unacceptable. They haven't won a playoff game in 25 years. That is beyond unacceptable. I just feel like the fans care more about the team winning than the owner, Stephen Ross. And when the fans care more, which it usually does go that way, but when it does, that's when things go bad. Like, you want your owner to want the team to be as successful as possible instead of just making him more money, right? Like, there are too many owners, which fair, like, they want money. That is why they're in their business. Not everyone cares about winning. I can argue the same thing here about Stephen Ross. It is embarrassing. It's not great. But Chris Grier is definitely on the hot seat coming into this 2025 season. Aquavision with a question. Who will be the primary return man, punts and kickoffs? That's actually a good question. Good football talk here. I think it's a pretty fair answer here. It's going to be Malik Washington. Malik was the 6th-round pick from Virginia in the 2024 NFL Draft. I am very high on Malik Washington. He also projects to be the lead slot receiver for the Fins this upcoming season. But he has a lot of special teams experience, did a little bit of return work at the end of the regular season on kickoffs, a little bit of punt. He did it in the preseason as well. I think it's likely going to be either Malik Washington or D. Eskridge, who I do think, by the way, is a sneaky 53-man roster candidate. I actually had him on the 53-man roster in my projection video a week and a half ago, but I do believe the second-year wiggly receiver, Malik Washington, is going to get first crack at being the return man for both punts and kickoffs. Could also see Jalen Wright getting some action on the kickoffs, but not the punt. We'll see, but I do think Malik Washington is going to be that guy. If you want more daily coverage on the Miami Dolphins, this is the channel for you. Subscribe today for daily content. And when we get to the closer season and training camp in the preseason, we will have 2 videos a day. We'll be live for every game the Dolphins play. Join us now for the top coverage on YouTube surrounding the Dolphins. Zimbotic gave it a shot, right, folks? I think Jalen Ramsey trade is inevitable. What are we going to get for him? Do you think we'll get a starting corner in return? No, I do not. So the return for Ramsey is very much up in the air. It depends on how much money Miami is willing to pay of his salary this year. If they pay a good amount of the salary, they'll get a good draft pick in return. If they want the other team to pay all the salary, then they won't get a good draft pick in return. I think that is the full depending factor here. When it comes to getting a player back for Ramsey, I do not really think that is in the cards whatsoever. Now, you might see Miami take a draft pick they get for Ramsey and package that with other draft capital to trade for a guy like Greg Newsome, who's on the block, or Jalen Watson from Kansas City. But in the actual trade the Miami Dolphins make with Ramsey, I would be absolutely stunned if they get a starting corner in return. Maybe they get a really young corner that is a depth piece. I could see that, like a 5th or 6th in a starting or a young corner. But someone that you could plug and play in that starting spot, do not think you're going to get that in return for Jalen Ramsey. Wesley, if Tua can't stay healthy this year, when do we start talking about moving on from him? Now. I know a lot of fans already want to start talking about moving on from Tua. I think Tua gets a little bit more hate than he should get because when he's on the football field, he is really good for this Dolphins team. Career 38-24 record. He is a winner. I think that is sadly mistaken from some Dolphins fans, but I understand. A lot of fans don't like the limitations in terms of his arm strength, the amount of games he misses, and I do get that. And I did say on a video over the last couple of weeks that if Tua misses more than 4 games again this season, 4 or more, you do have to start to think of moving off of him. He's got a 4-year extension kicking in this year, but you have an out after year 2, so he will be a member of the Dolphins for 2025, be a Dolphin for 2026. But after this year, if Tua misses 4 games plus again, I think you should probably look to draft one in 2026, this upcoming draft, that is, in the first round, because it's a pretty good class. Lenore Sellers, Arch Manning potentially, Drew Aller, Cade Klubnik, couple other guys like Garrett Nussmeier as well. So there are some good projected QBs that will be in this draft, and that is where I start to maybe think about taking one if Tua misses time again this season. But let me know. Be honest with me. Do you trust Tua Tagovailoa? Type T if you trust him. Type D if you do not. Fascinating, divisive player on Dolphins Twitter and YouTube. So let me know your thoughts. I'm J-Bro, says, how can we make it to the AFC Championship game? Oh, boy. Let's start with making the playoffs. Let's start with winning a playoff game. I mean, you haven't won a playoff game in 25 years, and you want to skip right to the AFC Championship game? That's going to be a tall task to be had there. But here's the realistic way, in my opinion. You have to win the division. If you want a legit shot, you got to win the division because Miami is yet to prove that they are able to go on the road and win a playoff game with this current regime to Mike McDaniel and company. So you have to host at least one playoff game. Have to have one. And the only way you host a playoff game is if you win the division. So if you're being serious here, and I hate to say this out loud, but the only way Miami, I think, wins the division is if Josh Allen gets hurt in Buffalo for an extended time. That roster is significantly better than yours. Josh Allen's a top 5 quarterback in football. And unless he gets hurt and misses 10-plus games, Buffalo's going to win that division. So if you want a serious pathway, I hate to say this, and I hope it doesn't happen because I will never, ever, ever, ever root for injuries. But if Miami wants to win the AFC Championship game, they got to win the division by having Josh Allen get hurt because I don't think they could do it unless he gets hurt. And then you got to win your first playoff game at home. And then you got to hope that you take on, the Houston Texans in the second round in Miami. That's the only way, because I don't think you'd be able to beat a team in the AFC North. I don't think you'd be able to beat a team like the Chiefs. So you got to somehow hope that you are the 2 seed, and then you play the Texans. That's really it. That is how I think you get to an AFC Championship game. Miami's just not in the spot right now where they can think about being in that position. FC. The question, what is the point in signing an aging cornerback when we probably aren't getting anywhere this season? The only person I would be happy with signing and starting is Asante Samuel Jr. because he's 26. Well, here's the thing, FC. If you sign Asante Samuel Jr., it's going to be a one-year deal. If you sign Rasul Douglas, it's going to be a one-year deal. So regardless, it's 1 year and potentially done with any of those corners. I get the youth, and I get, hey, if it works out, he can be a part of the secondary and core for the foreseeable future. But Miami simply just can't go into the season with Cam Smith and Storm Duck as your starting boundary guys. So I'm game for any corner, to be honest, whether it's Gilmore, Mike Hilton, Douglas, or Samuel Jr. Now, I've consistently said I would prioritize Asante Samuel Jr. I think he is the best one at this point in their respective careers, and because he is youthful, like you mentioned. But if they miss out on Asante Samuel Jr., they have no choice other than to add a 30-year-old corner like Douglas, Hilton, or Gilmore. And just because they're in their 30s is not going to scare me away because Miami just desperately needs to add someone at that position. So I do think they will sign one even if they miss out on Asante Samuel Jr. That'll do it for today's show. If you missed out on the chance to get our mailbag question in, well, make sure you subscribe and make sure you follow us on Instagram because when we get to 1,000 followers, we will do an Instagram-led mailbag. We are 61 followers away, so go give us a follow for more coverage on the Miami Dolphins.